a boy, upon seeing his newborn sister, insists she isn't like the rest of the family. To ease his concerns, his parents decide to take a DNA test, expecting to prove she is his sister. However, the results reveal a shocking truth. Dear viewers, welcome to our channel. Subscribe to receive more stories every day. Elena and Michael were the type of couple that many people admired. Their wedding celebration felt like a scene out of a romantic movie, surrounded by close friends and family on a stunning autumn afternoon. Afterward, they moved to a picturesque town in Oregon, living as a seemingly perfect couple. They understood each other deeply and shared a bond that others envied. During the week, they worked hard and spent their weekends relaxing with friends. Soon, they decided it was time to start a family. When Elena became pregnant for the first time, she decided to reduce her freelance writing projects to care for her child full-time. Michael's career in real estate was flourishing, allowing them to comfortably sustain their family on one income. Despite the new responsibilities and adjustments, their lives remained nearly as perfect as before. Elena ensured that their home always felt warm and welcoming, filled with the aroma of fresh bread and the calming scent of lavender, even as she neared the end of her pregnancy. Then Leo was born, their first son. He was a sensitive and affectionate child, rarely crying except during the early morning hours. From a young age, Leo displayed remarkable creativity and an unusual depth of empathy, which astonished Elena and Michael. As Leo approached school age, the couple considered enrolling him in a private academy that offered specialized programs for artistically gifted children. Michael was thrilled at the idea of nurturing his son's talents. "Take it easy, Michael. He's just a little boy. We have time to see where this goes," said Elena, trying to temper her husband's excitement. But Leo's abilities continued to blossom each day. He easily completed his school projects and always sought new challenges. Before long, Elena was pregnant again. When they shared the news with Leo, he was thrilled. He often leaned over to hug her belly and listen intently, as if he could hear the baby's heartbeat. Although only 5 years old, he expressed a protective instinct towards his mother that touched Elena deeply. The baby wasn't even born yet, but Leo already showed how much he cared. Elena felt as though she was living in a dream, but everything was about to change dramatically. Elena didn't want Leo to be alone when she went into labor. After all, Michael would be by her side in the maternity ward. So, she asked her mother, Diana, to stay with the boy. It turns out that Elena's second delivery was much more challenging than her first. She had prepared for a natural birth, as she had with Leo, and was determined to see it through, no matter how long it took. 2 hours later, Elena was drenched in sweat and utterly exhausted. The baby simply did not want to come out. The doctor and nurses monitoring the process soon realized that Elena was struggling. Something wasn't right. The doctor conducted emergency tests and quickly decided that continuing with a natural delivery was too risky. But Elena, stubborn as ever, didn't want to give up. She had done it before, so she believed she could do it again. But after another half hour, it became clear that Elena's strength was fading and the baby was in distress. The obstetrician saw that the baby could not be delivered naturally. Time was running out, and Elena's life was at risk. They had to perform an emergency cesarean section. Michael was terrified. He wasn't prepared to see his wife suffer like this and supported the decision for a cesarean. When Elena finally agreed, she was quickly sedated. Michael wanted to stay by her side, holding her hand, but as soon as the scalpel made the first incision, he fainted. He had always had a phobia of blood. Despite the scare, the birth was a success. Elena was stable, and the baby, a beautiful little girl they named Ava, was healthy. When Michael regained consciousness, he found himself beside Elena, who was still under the effects of the medication, holding their new daughter. The first time Ava nursed was a tender moment that melted both parents' hearts. "Another little miracle we created," Michael whispered, kissing his wife's forehead as the baby continued nursing. "I can't wait for Leo to meet her. He's going to be the best big brother in the world," said Elena, unable to take her eyes off the baby. When Elena was discharged and they returned home, Leo was waiting on the porch, calm but curious, with his grandmother Diana by his side. As soon as the car door opened, he ran to greet his mother and sister. Diana helped her daughter out of the car, carefully supporting the baby in her arms. But what happened next took everyone by surprise. "Leo, this is your sister, Ava. Come say hello to her," Michael said as Elena lowered the baby to his level so he could see her. But instead of smiling, Leo's expression grew serious as he looked at the baby. He shook his head and muttered something that left everyone stunned. "She's not like us," he said, looking up at his parents. For a moment, the air was thick with confusion as everyone tried to make sense of Leo's words. It was Diana who finally broke the silence. "What did you say, Leo?" she asked, but the boy remained quiet. "Why would you say that?" "She really is your sister," Michael said, encouraging him to take another look at the baby. Leo did as his father asked, but his frown deepened, and his eyes filled with questions. He couldn't understand why the baby had light brown hair and green eyes when everyone in his family had dark brown hair and brown eyes. Despite his young age, Leo's curiosity and keen observation skills puzzled his parents and grandmother. Sometimes this happens. Babies change as they grow, and with time, her hair and eyes might darken. "She was just born," Elena explained gently. But Leo shook his head again, clearly unsatisfied with the answer, and ran inside the house. Elena and Michael exchanged worried glances, unsure of why their son was reacting this way. Could it be jealousy? Fear of losing their attention? Sensing their concern, Diana reassured them, saying this was just a phase and perfectly normal. "Give him time. He'll soon realize that his place as your son isn't threatened by the baby. Make him feel involved, like he's needed. You'll see how quickly things will change," Diana said, her experience as a mother giving them some comfort. But as the weeks went by, nothing changed. Leo kept his distance from Ava and occasionally repeated that she wasn't his real sister. Michael grew frustrated with Leo's behavior and didn't hesitate to reprimand him. After all, it was a hurtful thing to say. When Elena bathed Ava, she would ask Leo to help, hoping that feeling useful would make him bond with the baby and let go of the notion that she wasn't part of the family. But it didn't work. Leo would help his mother, but he did so in silence, showing no affection for the baby. He wasn't the same boy who had lovingly hugged his mother's belly, eagerly awaiting the arrival of his sister. No matter what Elena or Michael did, nothing seemed to change. Months passed, and the perfect family they had worked so hard to build began to feel fractured, threatened by their son's persistent doubts. If Elena didn't insist, Leo would avoid playing with Ava altogether. By this time, Ava was more aware of her surroundings and often reached out to her older brother, trying to get his attention, but he acted as if she wasn't there. It broke his parents' hearts. Finally, Michael couldn't take it any longer and convinced Elena to let him take Leo to a therapist. Perhaps this was more than just a case of jealousy, and they needed professional help. Unsure of what else to do, Elena agreed. The following week, they took Leo to see Dr. Stephen Harris, a child therapist. But even after several sessions, Leo remained steadfast in his belief. He couldn't explain why, but he was convinced that the baby in their home wasn't his real sister. Dr. Harris saw Leo as an incredibly perceptive child and suggested an unusual approach. He called Elena and Michael into his office and proposed that they take a DNA test. "Leo is a bright and logical boy. He understands what a DNA test is, so I suggest you do it. When he sees the results for himself, he might finally be able to accept Ava as his sister," the therapist advised. Elena hesitated, worrying that taking the test might imply that they too doubted Ava's place in the family. But Michael reassured her that this was just a way to help Leo and put his mind at ease. Reluctantly, Elena agreed. It was worth it if it could restore peace in their family. Little did she know that the results would change everything. The DNA test was costly, but they decided it was necessary. They provided samples from both parents and Ava, sent them to a lab, and waited anxiously for the results. During the wait, Michael, Elena, and Ava spent their days trying to maintain some semblance of normalcy. Ava was growing fast. Though she couldn't walk yet, she was already trying to crawl around, her playful laughter filling the house with joy. She adored her parents and developed a close bond with her grandmother Diana. Whenever she saw Diana, she would stretch out her little arms, asking to be held. Her bright green eyes sparkled with curiosity, bringing light into the family's life, even as they worried about Leo's feelings. Despite the joy Ava brought, There was a lingering sadness because Leo refused to interact with her. This wasn't like Leo, who usually played with other children in the neighborhood without issue. The test results came in on a Friday morning, and Michael accessed them online. As he read the report, his heart sank. "This can't be right," he whispered, staring at the screen in disbelief. He called out to Elena, who rushed over with Ava in her arms. She read the results and sat down, shocked. She read them again, just to make sure she understood. The report confirmed that Ava's DNA did not match either Elena's or Michael's. Michael sat in stunned silence. Had Elena been unfaithful? Was that why the DNA didn't match? He called the lab to double-check, but the technician confirmed the results. Ava was not their biological child. But how is that possible when she came out of me? Elena cried, overwhelmed by a sense of dread. Michael tried to comfort her, suggesting they retake the test, saying that errors can happen. But Elena wasn't listening. She kept crying until, suddenly, she paused and asked, "Do you remember everything from the birth? Were you there when they put her in my arms?" "Because I was under anesthesia." Michael admitted that he hadn't seen anything either because he had fainted when the surgery started. When he woke up, the baby was already with Elena. For the first time, a cold fear gripped both of them as they realized that their baby might have been switched with another in the hospital. The days that followed were a blur for Michael and Elena. They had loved Ava from the moment she was born, but now the DNA test said she wasn't theirs. Should they ignore the results and continue to raise her as their own? Or should they pursue the truth and risk losing the child they had come to love? Michael found it hard to focus at work, while Elena cared for Ava with a heavy heart, the doubt gnawing at her happiness. Even Diana was affected by the uncertainty that clouded the house. Finally, the couple decided they had to know the truth. They returned to the hospital with the DNA results and demanded an investigation. Fearing a lawsuit, the hospital administration promised to do everything possible to find out what happened. A special team was assigned to review all the births from the day and time when Ava was born. After 10 agonizing days, they discovered a family who might have ended up with Elena and Michael's biological child. However, this family was a young couple living under difficult circumstances in a small, storm-damaged home they shared with relatives. The child they had, suspected of being Elena and Michael's biological daughter, was born with a cleft lip that required surgery and ongoing treatment to ensure a normal life. But the young couple could not afford the medical expenses needed for the baby's care. When the hospital team contacted the young couple and explained the terrible mistake, the mother was devastated. How could something like this have happened? The father remained silent, his sorrow visible in his eyes. They too had grown attached to the baby they had raised as their own. How could they part with her now? It was the same dilemma Elena and Michael faced. Now that they knew the truth, they felt a mix of emotions whenever they looked at Ava. With no other option and determined to correct the mistake, the two families made the heart-wrenching decision to exchange their babies. It was the most difficult decision of their lives, handing over the child they had loved and cared for to another family. When they received their biological daughter, both couples felt a confusing blend of emotions, indifference mixed with excitement. After all, they didn't know these little girls, but they were truly their daughters. A new story was beginning while another was ending. On the drive home, Michael focused on the road while Elena looked nervously at the child in her arms. How long would it take for the little girl to see Elena as her mother? And how long would it take for Elena to feel the same love for this child as she had for Ava? Michael remembered how Leo had immediately sensed that something was off when Ava was born, and he had been right. How he knew, no one could say. But Michael wondered how his son would react when they introduced this new child as his sister. Her hair is darker. It's like ours. But her eyes are a bit bluish, Elena observed quietly. When they arrived home, Leo and Diana were waiting as usual. But this time, Leo was calm, not anxious at all. Michael and Elena stepped out of the car and entered the living room with the baby. Leo approached slowly, lowering his gaze to the little girl in Elena's arms. He stared at her for a long time. The baby reached out her arms towards him, and a big smile slowly spread across Leo's face. "This is my sister. Can I hold her?" he asked, bringing tears to everyone's eyes. The little girl quickly adapted to her new family. Michael and Elena fell in love with her rapidly, mainly because Leo adored playing with her, making her laugh, and teaching her new things. Over time, they were able to arrange for the surgery to correct her cleft lip, making her even more beautiful than she already was. Leo and Ava, now with her new family, grew up as the best of friends. To this day, no one can explain how Leo knew that Ava wasn't his sister. Even Leo himself can't remember exactly why he felt that way. It's a mystery buried in his childhood, but Diana always says that it was thanks to Leo that two families were saved from a terrible mistake. Dear viewers, thank you for watching. If you like this story, please subscribe to our channel to receive more stories every day. Share with us what you think of this story.